Hey kids. I just got back from Jersey. I did something a little spontaneous and last Friday I decided I was going to surprise my kids. And I'm starting 2 new jobs. That was very, very difficult to try to figure things out. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to work on Sunday and I'm going to hop in the car. I found out that I didn't have to lead hikes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. So I worked a shift and I was tired, but I got in the car at like 10 at night and I'm deep in the mountains now, and I'm deeper in the mountains for my new job, one of my new jobs. So the mountain fog was insane, like insane. I mean, my whole car was encased in mountain fog. If you've not experienced like hardcore real mountain fog, it can be spooky. And funny enough, one of my new colleagues recommended that I listen to this podcast called Morbid, which is like some of them might be unsolved crimes, but they're like about some famous murders, and then how they were solved. And some of the cases are so interesting. They took like 40 years to finally like indict somebody or figure out who the murderer was. And I love stuff like that. And then some of it's like about ghost stories and hauntings, and it's just, mindless stuff that's good for a really long drive. So I'm listening to this podcast about morbid stuff, and I'm encased in this fog, deep in the mountains on these windy, really unfamiliar roads to me. I'm just getting acclimated to the area still, especially with this job. I've only been there 2 weeks, and I headed to Jersey, but a lot of what I want to talk about is how I really pride myself on being real and grounded and as practically minded and pragmatic as possible, because I am more spiritually oriented, and, I have a deep belief in God, or whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you want to call that, higher power, whatever floats your boat. But and I try to be very grounded and practical in that and in life, and very real and authentic. I'm all about authenticity. And we often project things online, especially social media, which has just become such a disaster. I think that's why we're in a huge mental health crisis with our youth, because it's, you're filtering everything. So nobody's comfortable with how they look anymore, because I don't think I've ever filtered a picture in my life. I mean, I even hate the whole selfie thing, but slightly narcissistic to an extent. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little harsh, but when you're constantly taking pictures of yourself, it's like, okay, go feed the hungry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, go to the food pantry or something. Get out of yoga's all about getting out of your center, not staying centered, but getting out of self. And it's very seva, service, seva's Sanskrit word for service. It's very community based and heart based and heart centered. And, there's this saying in the mental health field: when in need, do a good deed. And so, I don't know, we were driving and my youngest daughter was like taking selfies and Snapchatting. And I'm a very real mom, like I tell my kids how it is, and they do the same thing. And that's what this video is about. And I just looked at my daughter and I said, get over yourself. I think I even said to her, please go feed the hungry. Like, go do something, be a good human. And she is a good human. God love her. She's very compassionate and empathetic. She's, in nursing school. You don't become a nurse and not like have a love to help people and be of service. And, she's a very community-based person. But anyway, enough of my rant on selfies and social media. But, we often want to project our lives as really great. And I had an okay time in Jersey. It was okay. That day with Sarah was wonderful. We went to the beach. Well, I went for my hike at Manasquan Reservoir, which really isn't a hike. It's like a nature walk, but it's so pretty there. So much diverse ecology in New Jersey, the whole state alone, but especially in certain areas. There's like a wildlife preserve there. So some of the pictures that I took, full disclosure, I'm very big on leave no trace and staying on the trails, and But sometimes there's such, like, you could get some really nice pictures. And I knew it was super marshy in this one area, and it's, clearly says like, this area is private, no trespassing. And so, okay, I trespassed. I did. I'm telling on myself. I usually do that. But there was a bunch of logs, and I have pretty good balance as a yoga teacher. And I was like, well, I'll just balance myself on these logs. And I fell. And it's very marshy, and my foot went about 2 feet deep in the marshes. And I was like soaked, and I had just like black gook all over me, and it smelled really bad. So, and that was the beginning of my nature walk. But I got the shot, I got the shot. And I really do, try not to disturb the ecology. When I was leading the kids on hikes, I would talk about leave no trace, and even leaving things better than you found them. And we would talk about what leave no trace means. And a lot of people think that it just means like don't litter and don't pollute. But a lot of it is like stop going off trail. This really screws up the ecology. Park rangers don't like that. They don't like people who do that. We're not supposed to do that. Please stay on trail. When you think you see a shortcut in the forest and the woods, it's not a shortcut. Don't do it. Especially when there's a lot of switchbacks. People look for the loophole. They get tired or fatigued, especially if it's a high elevation, and they see things that look like shortcut trails, and you're really disturbing the ecology. And like I tell the kids, it's like if you came home from school and your bedroom was ransacked and your parents were like, we're really sorry, there was a burglar, they came in your room, ransacked everything, touched all your stuff, turned everything upside down, you would feel very violated. When you go off trail and you're stomping around in the natural habitat of wildlife, they really don't like it. It's a violation, and it does disturb the natural ecology. Okay, I'm off my soapbox, because these are things that I really didn't take super seriously, or I just didn't understand fully why this was a poor decision. While we're on this, can I just say, please keep your dogs on a leash on the trails and stop blasting your music. Nobody wants to hear your music. I mean, listen, even if it's music I like, I'm there to relax. Most people are there to listen to the sounds of nature. Stop being rude. Stop blasting your music. Put your freaking dogs on leash. I don't care how friendly and good they are. I love dogs. I love animals. Keep your pets leashed. Okay, now I'm really done. Anywho, so I had an okay time that day with Sarah. I went for my nature walk. I met Sarah. Well, I picked her up at her dad's house, and then we went to her favorite cafe, and I love the cafe too, Lava Java and Lavalette. And then we went and got Mom a bathing suit, because I forgot my bathing suit, and I had to buy a very overpriced beach bathing suit. And then we went to the beach, which was lovely, because I wasn't sure if that was going to happen. And then we went out to dinner at Crab's Claw Inn, which is, it's been in that area of the Jersey Shore for over 40 years, like a huge staple. And I really don't drink. I will never say that I'm absolutely a sober person, but there are years and years and years that I didn't have a drop of alcohol. I think the last time I had alcohol, I had a glass of wine on Mother's Day. And before that, last September when I was in Portugal, I had wine in Portugal. Before that was 4 years, I had wine in Italy. I mean, I really don't drink. So when I have a glass of wine and I can only drink red wine and only certain kinds like Cabernet, God forbid I have a Merlot, forget it. I'm just like bedridden. I get horrible migraines. But so I think it was a glass of Cabernet, and it was kind of funny because I've actually had wine with Sarah illegally before she was 21. But this was the first time that I drank with my kid when she was legally 21. Funny aside to that is right before I surprised them, I was on the phone with her a few weeks ago, and I was like, what are you doing? And she was like, I'm at the liquor store. And I was like, what are you doing at the liquor store? Because she's still 13 in my head. I was like, oh crap, yeah, you're 21, you're allowed to do that now. But at first I was annoyed. I was like, why are you at the liquor store? What are you doing there? So it was a really great day. I got burnt like a lobster, but I fortunately tanned quickly. And then we just were talking on the beach about tattoos, and I had seen a new tattoo on her arm. And I was like, you got another tattoo? And it was a seashell. And she was like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you. I thought you'd be mad. Because I'm not like I don't dislike tattoos, but I feel like my daughters have enough, especially my oldest. It's like, okay, done. And my oldest got a huge tattoo on her thigh for her 23rd birthday. I mean, it's her body, and, but I feel like, in your 20s, you have one mindset, and when you get older, you might not be thrilled with all these tattoos, but it's their life, and I do my best to stay out of it. So I saw this tattoo, and I was like, I wouldn't be mad. And I said, why did you get a seashell? Just because, you're such a beach kid? She said, no, I got it for Dad, which baffled me because I wouldn't associate my ex-husband with seashells. But then she said, sometimes Dad and I go on the beach and collect seashells together. I said, oh, that's very nice. That makes sense. So she's like, well, I want to get one for you. And I was like, oh, what are you going to get? And she already had a plan. So she whipped out her phone and she's like, I had written her something handwritten. And I always do a heart instead of saying love. And I do a heart always mom or mommy. And she's like, I just want to get the heart and always that you wrote in your handwriting. So I was like, well, let's go get a tattoo. Now, mind you, I only had 2 tattoos. This is one of them because I was a mental health professional. It says You Matter. It's for suicide prevention and awareness. I was working in a clinic with co-occurring disorders. It was an intensive outpatient program for adults 18 and older. Co-occurring means that there was mental health diagnoses. So they were being treated for mental health disorders and illness and addiction. Most of the addiction was cocaine, meth, and alcohol. One of them are a combination, but there were, sometimes you're treating people for cross addictions like gambling or sex addiction, stuff like that. So I love that job, by the way. It was very, very difficult during COVID to go from working in a counseling center and at a college to working in a clinic at night, but I really loved those people. They have such a special place in my heart. I think about them so much. And anyway, so this tattoo was 2 African-American gentlemen who attempted to take their life. They survived, and they started this company, You Matter. And there's other You Matters out there for suicide prevention and awareness, but this is You Matter with a period at the end. And my oldest daughter was getting it, and so I got it with her, and that was my second. And I was never going to get this. I have 1 tattoo. Full disclosure, it's a tramp stamp. I was very drunk on tequila. This is why I don't drink anymore. I come from a long line of alcoholism, and I just never learned how to drink socially and properly and appropriately. So I learned very quickly that I had no stoplight, and I'm grateful that I'm pretty self-directed and disciplined. And it was in my early 20s that I was like, I have a drinking problem, and I got myself well. So I gotten that tattoo. So I was in my 20s. I already had the kids, and my dad was a cop. And I got a piercing up here, and my father flipped his lid. So God forbid tattoos, right? So I got my first tattoo, and it's a little tramp stamp, but I got it in honor of my nieces who passed away from cystic fibrosis. So it's a butterfly and a sunflower, and I don't love it. I mean, if I were sober, I would have picked out something different. But when you're snockered, you don't always make the best decisions. And I went with all of these girls. It was 5 of my girlfriends at the time. And we were all married with kids, and we were all raising our kids together. And they all got their husband's name tattooed on them. So at least I was in a right enough mind not to do that, because I said to them all, you're going to regret that. You don't ever get somebody's name tattooed on you unless it's your kids. And I was the only one that did not get my husband at the time's name tattooed on me. And we all got divorced. I was the first one to get divorced. They all got divorced after me, and they all had to cover it up. So I had the wherewithal to make that good decision for myself. So I have the tramp stamp, and I was never going to get another one again. I'm not really a tattoo person. I don't feel the need. But I got this with my daughter to support her, and working in the addiction field, which is my jam. In that program, I was working across from a couple of the people in the group that had very intensive suicidal ideation, and one had multiple attempts on his life, and they would all comment on this. Even when I was working at the college, people would comment on this all the time, or I would even have people in stores say, I love that you have that on your wrist, thank you. Because you really never know who you're going to run into, right? I mean, just think about the parent who lost their kid to suicide, and they're seeing this, and it might bring some comfort, or it might drudge things up. It could go either way, I guess, but usually I'm getting compliments on it. So to make a long story long, I went with Sarah, and I was like, okay, I'll get one too. I'd no intention of doing this. Do I love it? No, I don't really. Well, I like what I got. I mean, I got it in honor of me and my daughters. My first one was for my nieces, like I said, that passed away of cystic fibrosis. This one was with Devin, and I wanted to get something that was for Sarah, but also the three of us. So I got a sun and a crescent moon and the stars, because I always called Sarah Sunshine Sarah, and Devin is a little bit darker of a personality. And when we were in Disney, when I was a single, I've been a single mom this whole time, but I'm not really raising them the way I was raising them when they were little. Now I'm just like a tour guide. I took them a couple times to Florida, to Disney by myself as a single mom. Those were our vacations, because I had family out there, and I had an aunt who worked for Disney and whatever. And we went to the Nemo thing, and the guy's voice that was being the turtle. What was the turtle's name? I can't remember. But it was a cute voice too. He called on Devin in the audience, and he's like, what's your name? And she said Devin, and he was like, Danger Devin, dude. And he did the whole gnarly surfing thing, and it was really cute. So I started calling her Danger Devin. And so I used to say she was dark and dangerous, which sounds mean, but I really love her, and we're being playful. She's just my way more intense, serious kid, where Sarah was always more laid back and super goofy. So I got the crescent moon for Devin, because she loves crescent moons, and I got the sun for Sarah, and then I got 3 stars, because ever since my kids were born, I always say I love you more than all the stars in the sky. I've been saying that forever. I still say it to them almost every time that I talk to them, or I sign off a message, love you more than all the stars in the sky. So I got 3 stars. Is it my favorite tattoo in the world? I don't even know why I got it. Whatever. But it's there. So I had an okay time. But the real point of all of this is there were so many bumps. It wasn't perfect. I think a lot of times we want to project our kids as awesome, and our family and our home life is wonderful. And I think that's the detriment of social media right now, is that you see these quick hits of people living their best life. And it's like, well, for the other 6 days of the week, was their life really that great? And so, my kids divulged a few things to me, and I was a bit blindsided. I cried a lot on the way home. It was very emotional. I wound up getting pulled over by a cop, and now I have to go to court because he wasn't very impressed with my dad's police card. And I was really speeding, and I honestly just wasn't aware. Number one, I was flying down a huge mountain. My GPS brought me home in a different way, and I'm driving from North Carolina now, not South Carolina. So I actually drove home through Tennessee, where normally I would never drive through Tennessee. And I somehow ended up driving through Tennessee into North Carolina. I had a really bad migraine because I was crying so much and so hard that I cried myself into a migraine. I couldn't see straight. I was 45 minutes from home, and I just wanted to get home, and it was midnight, and I get pulled over by this cop. So it was a little rough. Sometimes our kids double team us. I don't know if you've experienced this as a parent, but it's like, oh, so-and-so is being brave enough to say how they feel. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. So, we were in the car, and one was saying one thing, and then another one started saying another thing. And then I think some of it was trying to be played off as a joke or them being facetious. And I was like, oh, this is serious. And, I was really torn up. I don't want my kids to feel resentful or angry or sad or mad about anything. And suddenly they felt like they couldn't tell me certain things. And, I guess these are things I need to hear. I grew up in a home where you were very shut down and you were not allowed to speak your truth. You really weren't allowed to speak your mind. It was my way and the highway. It was very authoritative. That old school, do as I say, don't do as I do, which I hate it. The dumbest parenting tip in the world. Like, I don't even know where that modality came from, but I think it's so insanely ridiculous. And we were hit, we were spanked, we were smacked, just stuff that I don't really love, I don't find as helpful. So you do things differently. I think we all say that when we become parents, like, I'm just going to do things so differently. And I really did. A lot of times we say, oh, I said I was going to do things differently and I didn't. But when I became a single mom, I basically raised my kids without a television, and there were just certain things that I did differently. And I always sat down. I always gave them a voice and a choice. I wanted them to be heard. I would hold court when things went awry, especially Devin, because she was my more intense, challenging kid, and she needed really good reasons. Like, you had to really rationalize things to her and with her and for her. And so we would hold court. I mean, there were just really different things that I did. I became certified in the Nurtured Heart approach, which is a very unique way of, it's a form of, I would say, discipline, but I really wouldn't use that word for that. But I guess for these purposes, so you understand a little bit better of why you would use the Nurtured Heart approach, NHA. It is for discipline, and it's basically building inner resilience and inner strength within your kid, and focusing on strengths and focusing on the positive. Because again, I grew up in a home with a lot of criticism, and no one was stopping to say, I'm really, oh, what you did was great, but let's try this next time. There was never like an opening like that. It was just always going for the jugular. And that's just very old school parenting. I think most of us can say that we had some form of that or multiple forms of that, right? So yeah, I felt I was really heartbroken yesterday. I didn't know that they felt the way that they felt about certain things. And I'm not going to disclose all of it. I'm super forthcoming and open, and I would, but it's also private for them. And I don't want to air, because it's their dirty laundry, so to speak, But yeah, it was, so I wound up leaving early and not leaving on the best of terms. They were not happy that I surprised them, and that's the one thing I will disclose. It stressed them out, and they felt like they were put under obligation. I'm still trying to understand this, because if this were my mom, I'd be elated, but I have to remember that they're not me. And yeah, they weren't thrilled that I surprised them. It wasn't this like happy thing that I thought it was going to be. I apparently allegedly caused them more stress than not. It wreaked some havoc. There's still some bumps in the road as far as being someone who's been divorced, and some people still don't want to play nice in the sandbox, which I can't wrap my head around. It's been 15 years. I'm very much over everything, and I want everybody to be in that same space, and they're not. So some people aren't always kind or helpful or a team player, and that created more stress for my kids. And I didn't even think of those repercussions. So, I think it's okay to be really real and honest as parents. I think it's important for us as adults to be able to talk about these things because I think there is so much pressure, especially as women, to be everything, right? We need to be these like powerhouse, we're trying to be everybody's trying to masculinate us now. And men, I think, are being so feminized, and there's this complete role reversal. And it's like women are supposed to have it all and do it all. I can be the mom, I can be the CEO, I can be the breadwinner, I can change my own tire and hang my own stuff, and I don't need anybody. And I was very much there, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was very much wound up in that years and years ago, but men and women, we very much need each other, and if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, people need people. But because I am heterosexual, I'm speaking in terms of relationships in that way. And when you get divorced and you can't get along, it's very difficult, especially when one person really champions for that and the other person is just like, absolutely not. And the only thing that you can do is sink into acceptance. But I think these conversations are really important to have. I think this level of honesty is it's vital nowadays because we are under so much pressure to project this like positive, Pollyanna, perfect family dynamic life. And it's not real life and it's not helpful. And I see 9 out of 10 times in my stint in clinical settings and counseling, people were depressed and suicidal and anxious over the fact that they felt like they couldn't live up to this expectation that is being projected on social media forums and whatnot. I'm all for being positive. I think mindset is everything. And I'm very big into mindset, but I'm also big into being honest with the people around you and with yourself. You also need to accept certain harsh realities about life. You have to accept harsh realities about yourself. Like I said, there were things that my kids said, and some of it falls on me as the parent. And it was like, do I do that? Do I say that? Is this accurate? And whether it's accurate or not making it a right or wrong thing. This is how my kids feel, and how can I fix it? And I'm dealing with girls, and when a woman says in a relationship, I vented to my husband and he just wants to fix it. He always goes into problem solve it. I very much can be like that. So very quickly I was like, let's fix it. Let's problem solve. And they didn't feel heard in that moment because I just wanted to jump in and like nip it in the bud. And they were like, you're not even listening to us. And it was like, it's not that I'm not listening. I just want to make it better, and I want to make it better now. But I think having these conversations is so important. This is not embarrassing to me. I'm not a perfect parent. I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes. I will never surprise my kids again, ever. I didn't know that this would be such a dilemma for them or a hardship for them. And I will be more aware of what I'm saying and how my words affect them. And hopefully they do that for me too, because that's a two-way street. And hopefully we can become better communicators with one another. But I think that listening to people talk like this so openly and candidly about how imperfect their lives are, and I kind of felt bad. I kind of felt like I was being inauthentic after I posted my Saturday day with Sarah, and the next day turning to absolute shit with, 2 out of 3 of us in tears, and me leaving not on a good note. I kind of felt like it was inauthentic, but it really wasn't, because Saturday was a phenomenal day. Sunday just happened to be a very different day. And that is life. Ebb and flow. There's light and there's dark. There's 4 seasons a year. And, there's days where you're going to experience what I would call a winter. How you feel in the winter? You can have a day where you feel like you're in your winter months. And you could be in the winter months and you could feel like you're having a summer day. And yesterday was a very dark day for mama. But I hope this helps. And I would love people to start to comment more on videos and, just to say like an amen or thank you for saying this. Not that you have to thank me, but I just want to know that this is relatable. I just want to know that this information is helpful. Because I often say the mom who posts on Facebook and is like, little Johnny's such a great kid, and, like posts all this great things about their kid. I always say to people, as soon as that mother hits send, little Johnny is going to be a shit and peg his mom right in the head with a Lego, probably so hard that she bleeds, because that's what kids do. And that is real life. There's ebb and flow, there's ups and downs. It's all about how you handle it. Clearly today I'm in a much better mindset, but I was really sinking yesterday. So some of the things, just things that I do to help myself. I am back to doing what's called morning pages. So I get up and I journal 3 full pages. It's just a stream of consciousness. It doesn't need to make sense to me or anyone else. I'm just writing down random thoughts and feelings. And I do about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour of breath work every morning. I try to do some form of movement every day, but I bought myself flowers today. I buy myself fresh flowers every week. And I woke up and I took a shower and I used my favorite essential oils and my favorite soaps. And that always makes me feel better. And I went out and I bought myself some really pretty flowers, and that helped. And I made myself a nourishing meal. And I gifted myself a little bit of dark chocolate, which is my cheat with all of my autoimmune issues. And hopefully my body handles that okay today. I made myself one of my favorite cups of tea with a little bit of raw honey. And I've been sitting outside. The rain was falling. I sat and I just absorbed the sounds of the rain. And just did a little bit of meditation, called out of work because I just don't want to be around people. They had 5 servers. They didn't need a 6th one. They were overstaffing. And I called and I said, I'm really wiped out from my ride home and I'm not coming in. And they said, fine. So, sometimes you can do little things and just keep it simple and just find a little bit of quiet, get out in nature, do something soothing. It doesn't need to be big. You don't need to spend a lot of money on self-care. That's really, I don't love that message. I think it's like a big myth that self-care is like a shopping spree, or I went for a massage, or no, self-care can just be journaling or like writing affirmations or calling a friend and saying, I just need somebody to talk to. Self-care for me today was calling out of work because I'm a workaholic. And I gave myself a break, and I bought myself flowers. And by the way, I feel like I should get 10% of all of Miley Cyrus's profit from her song, because I've been buying myself flowers for the last 10 years, pretty much on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. So Miley Cyrus, I was doing this well before you wrote that song. All right, kids, be good humans, do good work. Ciao.